Yesterday, Labour told us of their plans to interfere in another free market. Today, MPs debated on Brexit, and a school caused a storm over their new uniform policy. I'm Max EB, and welcome to the EB podcast. First, I thought I would talk about Trump. Now, there are a few related issues with him over the last couple of days. Some good and some bad. Now, one is that he has allowed South Korea to buy weapons from the US, which is good because it shows sort of defiance in the face of North Korean aggression. Also, he managed to cut a deal with Democrats, which, despite his blatant disloyalty to his party, is something seen as an impossible task for him at the moment, seeing as he seems to be having problems even getting support from his own party members. But he has managed to secure extra funding for Texas in response to Hurricane Harvey, which has caused destruction there, so that is good to see from Trump, who's had quite a lot of problems as president so far, some due to his personality, some due to his opposition. Just a quick thing on that. Now, moving on, I thought I would next talk about today's Brexit debate in the House of Commons. It was a feisty session, I have to say. David Davis named Labour as cynical and unprincipled for saying that they will vote against our Brexit bill if their recommendations, although I think it's safe to call them demands, are met. So Davis also went on to say that on the day we leave, businesses will know where they stand. That's good, of course. And then there was a whole issue about which member of which party are going to vote different ways. Now, on issues like this, which I think affect the whole country on such a massive and irreversible scale, there should be some leeway for backbench MPs to not toe the party line. Now, I think that soft Brexit conservatives like Ken Clarke and Anna Sewsbury, and basically every Labour MP who were told to vote against the bill after today's first reading, should wait until second reading to do so. This is because it gets the ball rolling on our side and at least shows the EU bigwigs that we are unified on moving this issue forward. If we don't at least let our concerns over the final finished bill remain withheld until the second reading, where there will be just as much chance to amend the bill, then it gives Barnier and his friends another hole to pick in the political game that we're playing throughout these negotiations. We have to remember that the eyes of the world are with us on this. They're watching us, right? This isn't a piece of domestic legislation that can be passed through and amended quickly. Our government's current reputation was essentially sideswiped by a bus when May decided to, in my opinion, needlessly call an election and then run one of the biggest car crashes of a campaign compared to what I was hoping for, in the last few years, which led to our hung parliament. Of course, then making us seem weaker in the eyes of our European counterparts. So, of course, as the Brexit process developed over the coming weeks, I will talk more about that. But I thought I would move on to two school-related stories now. The first story, which I mentioned during yesterday's podcast at the end, is to do with a school called Lewes, I think that's how you pronounce it, in East Sussex. They say they've introduced what they say is a gender-neutral uniform policy. So they are preventing new arriving female students from wearing skirts. The school is saying this will help. This is to help students who are gender neutral or transgender, which they say they have in their ranks. And of course, I'm not going to deny them on that. Now, my view on this is that I think it's the wrong way of dealing with the issue. For example, if there is a boy who identifies as a girl in the school and not gender neutral, then you've simply just taken away his opportunity to feel like a girl by stopping him from wearing the skirt. Also, there are some girls from my school who have said, especially during the summer, that skirts are more comfortable for them. And also, I believe it should be down to choice. I think that you should instead simply allow pupils to wear whatever they want, because whatever pupils identify as, what they see themselves as, what group they respond to, then they can just dress accordingly. Another way to simply deal with this is to remove the idea of school uniform anyway. It gives freedom for all pupils to wear what they want. So, you got transgender pupils, gender neutral pupils, and straight pupils who feel like they prefer, a t-shirt and jeans over a smart way of dressing to school. Then it gives them more comfort and personal identity as well. If you simply give people the freedom to dress how they want, then you can assure that all genders, sexualities, and personalities are catered for. So, anyway, moving on, but keeping on the subject of school, Prince George started school today. He wasn't joined by Duchess Kate. She was unfortunately ill with morning sickness, so he was instead escorted inside by Prince William. Now, I personally never expected this issue to kick up a fuss, but of course it did, because no simple story can be left unpoliticised by everyone everywhere anymore in our current climate. The main criticism of the issue is that George was being privately educated. Now, I have absolutely no problem with this. He's a prince, he will be a king, his family have the money to pay for the private education, so I think he both deserves and should be privately educated if William and Kate want that for him. To be honest, I think sending him to a public school would have just been virtue signalling, which I'm happy to say the Royals don't seem to be doing and don't have a history of doing. So that's my weirdest story of the day, the way that's been sort of blown out of proportion. Now onto a key story from last night. Now, Corbyn, or I think one of his party members, announced that if he was ever to get into power, then he would order that all Premier League clubs must remove betting logos from their shirts in order to tackle the issue of gambling addiction in the country. I think that this is stupid. Not because I don't think we should tackle all addiction issues in this country, especially betting ones, but this, again, is a terrible way of solving the problem. This issue is slightly closer to my heart as I go to football every other week, and I've always been a lover of the beautiful game. Every week at QPR, I walk past a betting stall to get to my seat. Okay, the different teams that visit the stadium, whether I'm there at Premier League game or watching my beloved conference side Leyton Orient, have betting logos on their shirts. Has this pushed me to want to place a bet? No. Will I bet in the future? Probably not. And that's because people who know what betting is and where to do it. If you went full hog and banned all betting adverts, which this could escalate to if it was ever implemented, it won't stop the vulnerable from doing it and starting to do it. In the same way banning smoking adverts doesn't stop the low-life, good-for-nothing junkies at my school blowing smoke in the faces of passers-by, including myself at break and lunch. If we want to tackle betting addiction, then we don't need to pretend it doesn't exist. We simply need to increase advertising of campaigns such as When the Fun Stops, Stop. This is the campaign against betting addiction. And maybe introduce some kind of ID card system where you have to prove you're not a registered addict to place a bet or something of that form. I think that is something that could definitely be looked at. In some more positive business news to finish, there are reports of added buoyancy in the housing market where prices have gone up. This is a good sign. Because it shows that more people can afford houses, as we have seen with more people now worked in earlier this year, which brings some more good news in the face of Brexit. There was some bad news of slowing down in the services sector, but a boost in manufacturing due to surprisingly more overseas demand. It's good to see that demand is pushing the inflation in prices. It's good to show that our economy is doing well, even though we are being hit by our politicians acting like fools. So that's it for me this working week. I will be back this weekend where I'll have a brief review of this week's news as well as a look forward to the week ahead. So as always, I'm Max and thank you for watching the EB podcast.